Good day. I would like to welcome you to the lecture on time series analysis. Time series analysis is one of the easier sections for those of you that are studying your MBA in quantitative methods. This lesson is more inclined towards those learners that are doing quantitative methods in management colleges in South Africa, but can be adapted to other countries as well. The section on time series analysis is quite an easy section once you master the concept. We're going to be looking at an example and working through the example. This should ensure that you understand the concept of time series analysis. When I come across time series analysis, the question that I'm going to be dealing with here is one that has appeared in some examinations in the past. Let's go for it. It says, the table below gives the quarterly sales figures in millions of rands of a retail giant for the years 2008 to 2010. Normally a question like this, you'll be given a table 2008, 2009, 2010. The quarterly sales figures are given. The year is broken up into 4 quarters, namely quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3 and quarter 4, and this at the bottom here will be the sales figures. For example, the sales figures for quarter 3 for the year 2009 is 62, and obviously 62 million. The questions: using the ratio to moving average method, calculate seasonally adjusted indices for each quarter. Question number 2, obtain a regression trend line representing the above data. And normally the third question, obtain a seasonally adjusted trend estimate for the fourth quarter of 2011. What you would notice here is 2011 does not appear in our given information. So we are going to estimate or basically make a prediction based on our calculation of time series. Now in order to begin, I'm going to go back to the table. Quarter 1, 20 of 2008, quarter 2, 30, quarter 3 of 2008, 39, quarter 4 of 2008, 60. I am simply going to transcribe these figures onto my next table. And the next table is something that you have to know. I have the time period with my years. I have the quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, 2009 beginning with the quarters again, and 2010 beginning with the 4 quarters again. At the top, my time period, the quarters. I have something called an X code. I will explain that later on. This is Y, which means the given information. 4QMA stands for the 4 quarter moving average. Then I have something called the centered average, and lastly, percentage of average. You need to understand and learn this off. Now let's go filling in my information. My X code. X code is simply allocating a code for each quarter. So to make it easier, quarter 1, I'll give it X code 1, 2, 3, 4. Now be careful down here. I'm dealing with an X code. So this becomes a coding of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So I've given my codings from 1 right up to 12. The next thing someone might question is, why do I have these two together, the last two together, but gaps in between? Now for simplicity, and if you are answering it onto an answer sheet, it is much easier to leave it exactly as it is. It works out perfectly when you're calculating the rest of the aspects. So get into the habit of using quarter 1 and quarter 2 together, and the last 2 quarters together. Leave a gap between each quarter after that. Next, I'm going to put down the values as given to me in the question. 20, 30, 39, and on and on. Now these values that I'm plugging in here are directly from the question. So if I go down to 2010 quarter 4, I have 95. 2009 quarter 2, it is 51. So far I've done nothing major. I've simply put in what I have been given, and I've allocated my X codes. When you allocate the X codes, an important point is, if you are given another method called the zero average, that's something totally different, and that we will deal with at a later aspect. If you are not asked anything about zero average, then you simply go ahead and work from 1 to 12. Next step, I'm going to work with the 4-quarter moving average. 4-quarter moving average. Now, as the name suggests, it's an average. I'm dealing with the 4 quarters, which meaning I will take 4 quarters at a time and calculate the average of 4 quarters at a time. Now watch this. I deal with the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and the fourth quarter. I add them up. 20 plus 30 plus 39 plus 60. You can do that on your calculators. Once I get an answer, I take whatever answer I get here and I divide it by 4. And if I divide that by 4, I should get the answer that comes up here, which is 37,25. Now watch where the answer came up. It came up in the gap. All I did once again was I added 4 averages, or the 4 quarters. I divided by 4 and I got the 4-quarter moving average. How's that? That's quite easy. Now, if I want to go to the next portion, watch what I do here. Just take that out for now. Alright. I don't want that to come up there. Right. Let's go to the next one. If I want to get the next value, remember I have to add up 4. Take that out. So now to add up the 4 quarters, I take the 30 plus the 39 plus the 60 plus the 40. I add these up, and once I add them up, and if I divide by 4, it will give me the answer that goes into the slot here. How's that, guys? Quite easy. Now go to the next one. Let me change the color of the pen here, just to make it a bit easier for me to be able to allocate the different ones. Let's go with that. Now remember, I've dealt with that is over. If I want the next value, I take the next 4, and the next 4 is the 39 plus the 60 plus the 40 plus the 51. I add those 4, and if I divide them by 4, it gives me the answer that comes in there, and that answer is 47,5. And guys, I go on and on and on with the same process. Let me do one more, then you can get an understanding of where I am. Let's change the pointer option again in color. Okay, let me go with the highlighter for now. The next thing, remember I finished off with that. I go with the next 4. The next 4 is the 60 plus the 40 plus the 51 plus the 62. When I add those up and divide by 4, it should give me the answer that comes up here. Alternatively, what you can do, if I want to fill the space, go in between, add the 2 up, the 2 bottom, divide by 4, and you get to the next answer. And all that happens after this, guys, is I work on and on and on. Let's just get rid of all these demarcations. All right. So watch the next 4. If I want this value, it's that plus that plus that plus that. I get that value. How's that, guys? If I want this value, it's 51 plus 62 plus 81 plus 50 divided by 4. I get that value. If I want the next one, yeah, remember to fill something in here. I go with the 62 plus the 81 plus the 50 plus the 64 divided by 4. If I want this value, it's easy, go 2 up, 2 down. 81 plus 50 plus 64 plus 74, and I get that value. Now watch what happens here. If I want this one, it's 50 plus 64 plus 74 plus 94 divided by 4, and I get that answer. Can I go any further? I've only got 2 more quarters here. I cannot. I need to have all 4 quarters. So that's the position where I stop. So the 4-quarter moving average was quite simple. Let's go over to the next one, the centered average. Centered means in the center, 2. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat the procedure that I did here, except I'm going to use the 4-quarter moving average to generate the answer for this column down here. But I'm going to now work in 2s. So I'm going to go ahead here. Let's go back to the pen and work 37 plus 42,25. I get an answer. I divide that answer by 2, and that will give me the answer there. And the answer is 39,75. Now you would notice I'm going to be doing the exact same thing over and over again. If I want the next answer, which should come in this gap here, I take the 42,5 plus that divided by 2, and I get that answer. What about the next one, guys? I'll take that one plus that one divided by 2, and that gives me 50,38. Let me do one more. For the next one, I take that one plus that one, 53,25 plus 58,5. Make sure you get your answer, you divide it by 2, and that gives you the next answer. And I can go on and on and on and on. And this is the point that I stop. How's that, guys? Quite easy. And the last one is very, very easy. For me to get the percentage average, I simply work with my original Y value. I work with the calculated centered average, and I work out the percentage of these two, which means I take the 39, I divide it by the 39,75, and I multiply it by 100, and that will give me a percentage, and the percentage that I get is 98,11%. Let me do one more. If I want the percentage here, I take the 60 divided by 44,88, and remember, guys, multiply by 100 because you need it as a percentage. What about the next one? 40 divided by 50,38 multiplied by 100 and gives me 79,4%. I go the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one, and the last one is 64 divided by 69. Remember, multiply by 100 and I get 92,75%. Now please remember that I've generated these answers for a reason. I'm going to use them in my next step. 2008 quarter 3, the percentage average is 98,11. For 2008 quarter 4, the percentage is 133,7%, and on and on and on. The next thing that you would have to do is generate another table, and this here deals with the year 2008, 2009, 2010, the quarters, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. These are the answers that I had in the previous table. These answers here, I've simply taken them and put them onto the table. Now guys, unfortunately this is another table that you have to know of. At the bottom, this is the mean multiplied by the adjustment factor, and finally the seasonal index. Let's go back to what has been given, or what has been calculated and provided in this table. For quarter 1, I've got 2 values. Quarter 2, I've got 2 values. The mean. What does the mean mean? I like saying that. What does the mean mean? The mean is simply an average. How do you calculate an average, guys? The mean, let me do it down here. The mean is an average. If I want to calculate the mean for quarter 1, I use 79,4 plus 76,05, and I divide it by 2, and that gives me the mean. Likewise, I add this 2 divided by 2, I add those 2 divided by 2, I add those 2 values divided by 2, and I get the mean. The next step is I need to add up all the mean values and end up with the value down here. And this value becomes 402,2%, which automatically is a problem. 402,2%. Because I'm dealing with the 4-quarter moving average, 4 quarters. Ideally, I should end up here with 400%. Nothing more, nothing less. Now the question is, how do I convert this 402,2? How do I bring it to 400%? And this is done by using something called the adjustment factor. This formula is given to you in your formula sheets. The adjustment factor is what I need, the 400, over the value that I obtained. And once I do 400 over 402,2, I get the adjustment factor of 0.9945. All I simply do here is I put in the adjustment factor, and I'm going to multiply the mean by the adjustment factor. The mean multiplied by the adjustment factor gives me the value for the seasonal index. The mean multiplied by my adjustment factor gives me the mean. Multiply, multiply, and when I add up all these values, I should end up with 400%. That multiplied by that will give me 400%. Guys, please ensure that you have 400%. You might have to do some rounding of rules here in order to get this 400%. Very, very important. And lastly, I want you to remember this. Later I will show you why I want you to remember this portion. Let's go further. I have now answered the first question to get the seasonal index. Let me move over now to the next question. And the next question is the question where I need to get the trend equation. The trend equation is given by a simple equation. Y is equal to A plus BX. If I have a scatter plot and I need the line of best fit, I use regression analysis in order to get this. Now, if I am dealing with this trend line, I'm going to be dealing with the same thing. I'm going to use regression analysis. In order for me to get the regression line equation, I need to get the value for B and I need to get the value for A. Let's start off with, how do I get the value for B? Turn to your formula sheets and the equation to calculate B is given here. Hey, this seems like a very, very long equation, but it is not so. B is equal to N is the sample size. This sigma stands for the sum of x times y. Sum of x, sum of y, sum of x all squared, sum of x squared. Now I'll go further in terms of how I'm going to use this, but for now this is the equation to calculate B. The equation to calculate A is given as this in your formula sheets, but I do not like to use this equation. The reason I do not like to use it is, if I have to look at this portion here, what is that? The sum of y divided by n. I've explained it previously. The sum of y divided by n is actually the mean. So that can be written as the mean of y. Likewise, the sum of x divided by n, that can be written as the mean of x. So therefore, I prefer using that equation. And once I get this equation, guys, I now have my trend line equation. How do I go about getting the value for B and the value for A? I now go into another table. Now this may seem monotonous, but this table gives me the trend line. I start off by using my X code. Remember I dealt with the X code before, 1 right up to 12. Then I have my Y as from the original question as well. These are my Y values coming down. Now how do I know that I need to put in here x times y and x squared? Very, very easy. I get this from the equation. According to my equation, I need to get the sum of xy. So it means I need to know x times y. I also need to get here x squared, and that is why I know I need x squared. Now remember guys, this is x, that is y. In order for me to get xy, it means x multiplied by y. 1 times 20 gives me a value of 20. 2 times 30 is 60. 3 times 39 is 117. I'm sure by now you get the picture of what I'm doing. Monotonous, but at the same time, guys, you need to be accurate. What about x squared? Self-explanatory. This is x. If I square that, I get the value for here. 1 squared is 1. 2 squared is 4. 3 squared is 9. 4 squared is 16. And on and on and on. Until I come up with 12 squared, which is 144. right at the bottom, if I have to add up all these x values here, I get the sum of x. Agreed? And the sum of x is equal to 78. Working with the 78, I can get the mean. The mean of x is 78 divided by 12, which is equal to 6,5. Likewise, these are y's. If I go down and add up all the y values, I end up with the sum of y. If I divide by 12, because the sample size is 12, I get the mean of y, which is 55,5. Now what happens if I have to add up all these values? Now that's correct. I get the sum of xy. And the sum of xy is 5069. And lastly, guys, what about x squared? If I have to add up all the x squared values coming down here, I get the sum of x squared, which is 650. For me to get the trend equation, I'm simply going to use these values with the sample size, which is 12, and I'm going to get the trend line equation. I've calculated all of this from the previous table. It seems long, but once you get the hang of it, guys, it's very, very easy. Okay, trend equation, y is equal to a plus bx. That's where I'm heading. The formula to calculate b is as so. What's the value for n? 12. The sum of xy, the sum of xy is this value, minus the sum of x. What's the sum of x? 78. The sum of y is here, 666. N is 12. The sum of x squared. These are not the same. The sum of x squared is 650. The sum of x all squared is the 78 all squared. I simply plug the correct values into the equation. Using a calculator, I get the value 5,17. What about the value for a? A is equal to the mean of y minus b times the mean of x. The mean of y, I've got it. The mean of x, I've got it. The value for b, I've got. I simply calculate the value for a. Once I've got a and b, I now end up with my trend line equation, which is y is equal to 21,9 plus 5,17 x. Easy. By now you should be smiling because these are marks in the bag. Let me go over now to the last question. The last question says, obtain a seasonally adjusted trend estimate for the fourth quarter of 2011. This question can be different. They can ask you any quarter of, let's say, 2011, first, second, third, or fourth quarter. They could ask you any one of them. They could ask you all four. I will just simply do the fourth quarter, but everything else will be the same. My trend equation is y is equal to 21,9 plus 5,17, and remember this was x. Where in the world did I get the 16 from? Very, very easy, guys. I've got my 3 years. My x codes went right from 1 to 12, agreed? And that was 2010, quarter 4. Your 2011 quarter 1 is going to be number 13. Quarter 2 is going to be number 14. Quarter 3 is going to be number 15. And quarter 4 is going to be X code, which is 16. So dependent on which quarter they ask you, you are going to substitute the correct X code in order to generate the value for Y. Easy. But I'm not complete. There's one more step. This is not the answer. The value needs to be multiplied by the seasonal index of quarter 4, which is 130.84%. Remember that star that I told you to remember? Down here. The seasonal index. The seasonal index for quarter 4 is 130.8%, agreed? So I have to multiply it by 130.8%. If I was dealing with quarter 3, it will be this value. If I was dealing with quarter 2, it will be that value. And if I was dealing with quarter 1, it will be 77.3%. I simply take the 104.62. I multiply it by 130.84%, which is 130.8, the 4 is missing, divided by 100. Guys, can you see that? That's percentage per 100. Don't multiply it by 130.84 and decide that is your answer. It's 130.84%, meaning per 100. and that gives me my final answer, which means the expected sales should be around 136,840,000 rand. And this should be a 25-mark question in the exams. Simple, yet quite effective. Understand this example, you can understand every example henceforth. Now, this has been a lesson done by ATA Consultants, which is a consultancy in South Africa that deals with maths training, also MBA statistics training. We can be contacted on 083 653 8568 as we do lessons as well, both in Durban and Johannesburg. Thank you for your time, and if you can leave any comments, it will be appreciated so that we can either enhance this video or provide more videos of the same quality. Thank you very much.